Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Beyond the Deal. I'm here with Mike. We are in Gilbert, Arizona. It's 3 p.m. We're already sweating, and we haven't even started playing yet. It's going to be a good day. All right, for today's video, we have a very interesting topic for you. We are going to be talking about the lessons after 5 years of syndicating. That's how long we've been doing this now, and we've learned a lot of things on the way. So we're going to have a lot of knowledge and a lot of advice to give to you guys. Let's get into it. All right, Mike. So why syndication in the first place? Why not be a house flipper? Why not own some rental properties? Why did you end up syndicating deals in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So, that's always the immediate step is to go with single family real estate. It's easy to get into, low cost of entry sometimes. Syndication gives you the ability to really get large projects. So we're talking 10, 20, $30 million projects. Takes a team, takes a lot more effort. But in the end, if you can get ahead of that and get the team together, you're now owning, a fraction of a much larger asset. So it makes it easier to scale. Usually the cash flow comes faster, but it takes more time.
I did start with the single family route. And in fact, I did that for 3 years, house flipping, long-term rentals, Airbnb, being a realtor, being a wholesaler. And when I finally learned that you could actually buy a 20-unit building instead of 10 duplexes, my whole world opened up, right? Because you get the economies of scale with syndication. You get one roof, you get all the same type of toilet, all the same type of floors. You don't have to send a handyman all over town. It just makes so much sense because it's actually the same amount of work to own a 100-unit building as it is to own a couple of duplexes. So when we look back at the first deal or two that we syndicated, what's a mistake that maybe felt kind of small at the time, but now has turned into a huge thing?
Many mistakes, Michael.
Yeah.
I think one underestimating, some of the unknowns, which again they're called unknowns for a reason, but capital expenditures. I would say the biggest one though is the team, right? You get into a relationship, a partnership, a legal partnership, which is like a marriage, and everything's going well and everyone's participating. When things get a little tough and they get tight, some people start to fall off. They start to not show up to calls. That's really challenging because you signed up as a team. And so what might seem like, it's not a big deal because everything's going to be great. It's what happens when it's not great.
Yeah.
And times get really tough. And I think that's something that you got to spend a lot of time and date before you get married.
Absolutely. And, for me, I think when we got into this, you have to remember that it was 2020, right? It was COVID, real estate was going crazy. We had unprecedented low interest rates. Everybody kind of just assumed that things would keep going up forever, right? And, I'm thinking about one deal in particular that we ended up buying with a floating interest rate. I'm gonna let this car go by. And we ended up buying it with a floating interest rate because that's all you could get at the time. If you wanted to try and get agency debt, you had to wait, a year or
At
more.
least, yeah.
Yeah, in order to get the deal. So in order to actually get a deal done, you had to get floating debt. And, lo and behold, July of 2022, everybody's interest rates went through the roof. And lessons learned,
Yep, for
certainly.
sure.
Sounded good.
Oh, line drive, baby. All right, Michael, this question's for you regarding capital raising. What has changed, right? Since we've been in the business for 5 years now, what's changed from when we started to where we are today?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, we were pretty much just using Google Sheets to keep track of investors, right? We weren't really running it like a true business operation. A massive change came when we hired a marketing company and got a CRM and started actively marketing to get new investors, running ads, really targeting accredited only. Because when it comes to family and friends money, that might help you for your first deal or two, but it's not going to last forever. Oftentimes when you raise from family and friends, maybe they have 25,000, maybe they have 50,000 to invest in one deal, but that might be all their savings, and they're not going to be able to be your repeat investors who continuously invest over and over again. So a massive change came when we started running ads to get new accredited investors. And then lately, we've actually been incorporating AI into our raises, which is a very recent development. We've talked about this on a previous episode. Not everybody is ready to be talking to a robot about investing in a deal, but we actually did get some good responses, and we had it act as our sales development representative, and we had it basically answering questions that they might have via text, and I actually found it to be pretty effective.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to kind of filter kind of in the initial calls, do some screening, get some qualifications. Sometimes you get people that are not actually accredited. So It's a great way to filter through and save some time.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, nothing beats that one-on-one, person-to-person relationship. Nobody's going to invest a deal if they've never actually spoken to you.
That's right.
Hey, look at that. We're right next to each other. All right, 100 yards to the pin. Beautiful day.
All right, I'm maybe 8 feet from the pin. A little chunky, but good.
All right, Mike, this question is a continuation of the thing I was just talking about. So, in the last 5 years, what have we learned about debt? How has our approach to finding debt and taking debt changed in the last 5 years?
Well, I think one, just understanding that market cycles happen and you cannot count on interest rates to drop forever or even hold still. You can't have the predictability of the government controlling treasury rates. That's, I think a lot of people were caught off guard, including us on one of our deals, right? We just talked about that. So, one, making sure your deal is at least 2 points above your debt rate. So, if you have a 6% interest rate, your property really needs to cash flow at least 8%. Give yourself that margin because that spread can get quickly eaten up if you get an extra expense or taxes get reassessed and you miss the reassessment. There's so many variables, and debt is one you can actually control because you can understand what it is and go fixed rate. Like we won't look at anything that's not fixed rate. In fact, we're not even looking at bank deals. We're trying to find seller finance deals just because it's out there. There's a lot of owners, unfortunately, that are underwater. And so they're having a hard time finding buyers. But if they can carry the paper, right, be the bank, it helps us control and really negotiate terms on our favor. And that's the way to go.
Yeah. I just want to stress that anytime a bank is involved, the deal gets so much more complicated. They will make you jump through a million loopholes. They will raise the interest rate on you at the closing table. Everything you can possibly do to avoid working with these banks because they are going to be the only ones who make the money in the end. I promise you.
Come back around.
All right, Mike, let's talk about operating for a second. So, obviously, we now have 5 years of operating multifamily and a variety of different other asset classes. What is something you wish you knew at the beginning about the best practices for being an operator of multifamily or any of these asset classes?
Yeah, and we got a lot of experience in that now. I would say choosing or understanding the ability and commitment of your on-site team, your on-site manager is everything. Depending on the age of your property, you're gonna have some maintenance items, deferred items. Do you have a competent, experienced maintenance crew that can support that on-site? Because all of your underwriting, all the stuff that you and I do means nothing if the team cannot execute your business plan. And so, as a fiduciary to our investors, knowing what that capability is, their background, their experience in not just in a market, but in that vintage of asset, in that size of asset, really makes a difference. And I think we've learned some good lessons and some hard lessons, right?
Absolutely. The on-site is everything, and that's even more detailed than just your PM, right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean you have a good or a bad PM, but you could have a good PM with a bad on-site, and that can still make all the
Right. So
difference.
there's the company and then there's the individual, and having
Mm,
the individual and then also their management team, I should say that too. Their support system around that person is key.
absolutely.
Third one, go.
So we've probably touched on this definitely a few times in past podcasts, but in the last 5 years, how would you say our approach to partnerships and people have changed?
Yeah, I think one, sometimes you get a bunch of eager people that all want to do the same thing, get into their first deal. That's probably a pretty big mistake. One, it's really hard to do and execute. So choose partners that have been in the shoes that you want to fill, have been doing it much longer than you have, and then have a skill set that complements you. So one could be great at asset managing. Obviously buying apartments for us, you have a balance sheet net worth requirement. That's just kind of step one. But step two is who's going to asset manage? Can they do that? Have they done it? Do they have a track record? Capital raising, along with managing property, investor relations. There's all these different roles, and I think finding people that are really good at those niches is the best way. You and I both wear both hats, or a lot of hats, right? Multiple hats, and it's really hard to do well. It's just like anything else, right? You can't do everything well. So pick what you got and find partners that complement your skill sets.
Yeah. Syndication is a team sport. You can't do everything yourself, and you shouldn't try to be good at everything yourself. I think that There often are a lot of syndications where, people want to get in, it's their first deal, and they don't really know what their skill set is yet. It's maybe their first time raising money, maybe it's their first time buying an apartment complex, and, they're eager, they're green, but you don't actually know what they are or are not good at yet. So having that experience on the team of somebody with a track record is absolutely crucial.
And the biggest piece of all of that, and it's really hard to test the waters to vet, I should say, is core values. Do you have the same core values and integrity? Everyone says they have integrity, but is there any way to vet that?
Mm,
Look into it, look into their other partnerships, even get referrals. Like, hey, do you know this person? Are they in your network? How are they a good person? All those things will boil down to, besides the skill set, how do they operate as humans?
absolutely. Oh, golf. So fun. Going to find balls. You know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. We're going that way. Hey guys, pardon my sweatiness, but I just want to take this moment to thank our first official sponsor of Beyond the Deal. That's right, it is going to be the Country Club Mastermind. I've recently become affiliated with this organization, and I'm a really, really big fan of what they do. This is a mastermind for entrepreneurs who are interested in golf. There's a huge element of golf coaching involved. We get weekly goals. The founder of the organization is a guy who almost went to the Masters, so he's really going to be able to help you with your game. But more than that, you get access to the network of like minded individuals, entrepreneurs, people who are able to help you in business. These are 6, 7, 8 figure guys who can really help you go where you're trying to get going. So if you are interested, go ahead and click the link down in the description below and learn more about how to join the country club. All right, Mike, in the last 5 years, what have you learned about investor relationships and maintaining those?
Wow, that's a great question. Um, Communication. It sounds like a cheesy answer or the cliche answer, but we I think have learned to be better. We haven't been great at the beginning. It's one thing, when you court the investor, talk to the investor, get them to trust you and invest with you, but then what happens after the fact, right? Are you sending out quarterly, monthly, weekly distributions or communications? That's the big key. I would say one of the things we learned is some of our projects we were not as consistent with sending out those communications. The investors just want to know what's going on, right? They don't need to be in your business. They don't want to know the nitty gritty, but they want to know, hey, what's the high level things that are happening, and them hearing from you versus them contacting you going, hey, what's going on with this project? Um,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big piece of it. Just better communication.
And I would say that, one thing that we used to do is and we still do this, we would record quarterly video updates. And I think that was a really effective means of communicating with investors. They'd rather hear it, from your face, you talking, as opposed to just getting an email and, having to read through it and find out what's going on with the property. But it's a very different story when everything is going smooth, when they're getting their distributions every month or every quarter, then, they're probably not going to be too inquisitive. But when things go sideways in deals, and they always do at some point, they want to know what's going on, and it's your responsibility to keep them informed.
That's right. Yep. Down the middle.
Nope. Okay, let's talk a little bit about mindset. So, in the last 5 years, syndication isn't easy. I think a lot of people maybe think it's easy money and you do one deal and you're rich forever, and that could not be further from the truth. So, how has your mindset changed, maybe your approach to risk tolerance, these sorts of things in the last 5 years?
I think, if anything, it's gotten stronger as far as needing to make sure you can weather the storm, right? We're in a storm. We're in a couple thunderstorms with some of our deals, and other ones are, it's no clouds and clear skies, right? But the mindset of getting kicked in the nuts every
Absolutely.
every other day sometimes where
Yeah.
deals don't go right, lenders say no. We had a deal where we had 10 lenders say no in the middle of a construction deal. We've had deals kind of at the last minute, the lender changes their terms, or equity backs out, or you name it, it's happened. Just finding your first deal. Michael and I think I told you, right? I underwrote 1,000 deals before we found the first one. So not a lot has changed as far as mindset. It gets tougher. Once you own properties, you are now obviously on the fiduciary hook as well as the financial hook on that loan. So that changes your risk profile of maybe the next deal and what you can consider. But it's staying positive, doing morning mindset, mantras. I think all of that stuff is undervalued, underplayed, right?
Yeah.
That stuff is everything, I think.
Yeah, mental toughness is really key in this game. I think that, if you think you've been stressed before, and I say this a lot, try raising $5 million in 3 months with a ticking timer on it. And you will push yourself in ways that you didn't really know you were capable of before. And the grit is really, really essential in this business. Okay, so anybody who has been following us for a little while might already know the answer to this question, but how have we pivoted? How has our approach to investing changed in the last 5 years?
Yeah, a couple different ways. One, finding deals, one that cash flow on day one, working with larger investors instead of the, let's just call them retail investors, right? Just a little easier to raise equity. But then also finding seller finance deals. Like those, probably two out of those three are the biggest pivots that we've made. Is just being very bullish on not finding, being less bullish, I'd say more bearish on your typical value add deals.
Yeah, well, and value add in general, I would say that finding a multifamily deal that works in today's environment is few and far between. I mean, really, you kind of have to have a personal relationship with the seller or be able to negotiate seller financing. And all the sellers still want their 2022 prices. They seem to still think values are inflated like that, but multifamily values are down 30% across the country right now. And we have shifted asset classes a number of times. We have our commercial retail deal, which is a really, really strong cash flowing deal. And then we also have just bought our first hotel, boutique ultra niche hotel, which is going to be a very, very strong cash flow play for our investors.
All right, Michael, if you could go back in time and go back to your first deal, the first raise that we did, what would you do differently? What do you know now that you didn't know back then?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that you just need to always be raising money. I mean, before you have a deal, before you need the money, start raising it now. Start telling every single person you know what you're doing, overcome the imposter syndrome, and just make it happen. Make sure that everybody you know knows that you are a capital raiser and that this is what you do. And so they're not going to be surprised at some point when you say, "Hey, I have a deal. Are you interested in investing?" They're already going to expect it. They're already going to see it coming. Start marketing, start educating people. Just get yourself out there and start raising money.
To the moon.
The duck have your ball? Yeah. All right, so we finished up the first 9. We're enjoying a much needed beverage before we do it all over again. But Mike, let's give some final parting wisdom, some words of advice.
Yeah.
What would you tell anybody who wants to get into this and is thinking about investing in real estate or doing syndications?
Well, first of all, let's talk about golf. Back 9 is up next. The front 9, we were
Doesn't
at about
count.
50.
Yeah,
So
doesn't
we're
count.
on track to be sub 100, which isn't the worst day.
Yeah.
We got to shoot a podcast and have a good time. As far as real estate investing, just start. Look, you can do analysis paralysis and just never find a deal and just never get connected. But reach out to people, make the phone calls, do the work. It will come. It will come after a lot of effort and a lot of time, but it will come. You just got to keep at it. And the moment you think you're like, man, I'm not going to get there, your deal's going to show up. It's just the way it works. So it took us 2.5, almost 2 years to find our first deal. And then the deals kept rolling. And now we've slowed down to be more specific, more particular on what we want. And then we can go pick out more deals, right? They are definitely out there. The market is actually right for buying, a little challenging for selling. So if you're looking for it, there's probably deals out there. You just need to be really particular and just one start. So that's my advice.
Just do it. Just start. That's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Deal. I hope you got some valuable insights that you can apply to your own investing journey. Now, if you've enjoyed this conversation, do me a favor, hit that follow button, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody who you think could benefit from it. It really helps the show grow and bring on even more incredible guests. If you want to go deeper, make sure to follow me on your socials. You can find the links in the show notes in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, keep going beyond the deal.